Hi, this is Darren and welcome to Coffee Hammer. It has been a hot summer of Sigmar with a new Sand and Bone gaming pack, new Spearhead boxes and a steady update to existing armies. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing each and every 4th edition release Spearhead box. We're going to talk about what models you get, the value of the box compared to buying each unit separately. We're also going to cover how they play, the Spearhead's general strengths and weaknesses, and ultimately where they rank on my tier list. I won't be covering the Snarlpack Hunters or the Deathrattle Tomb Host in this video, unfortunately. Even though the rules for these armies are available, the Spearhead boxes for them are not at the time of recording this video. So whether you're planning on picking up your first Spearhead box or figuring out your next purchase, this video covers everything you need to know. Grab yourself a cup of coffee as we review and rank every new 4th edition Spearhead box so far. Starting us off, we have the Darkoath Raiders. This Spearhead contains a Darkoath War Queen, 5 Darkoath Fell Riders, 10 Darkoath Marauders, and 10 Darkoath Savages. These models look stunning and they capture the wild and tribal nature of the Darkoath mortals. The total match points of this box comes to 420, which is one of the lowest points total for any of the Spearhead boxes, just narrowly beating the Sons of Behemoth. When it comes to value, you're looking at a discount of around 33% and a savings of £44.50. Compared to the Bloodwind Legion, this Spearhead is very different, with a pure focus on the Darkoath side of the Slaves to Darkness faction. The Darkoath are more lightly armoured and act as skirmish units, great at flanking enemy positions and taking objectives. They are a nice supplement to the army roster that contrasts against the more heavily armoured, menacing Warriors of Chaos. If you are thinking of starting a Slaves to Darkness army, getting both this Spearhead and the previous one gives you a great foundation to begin your conquest over the mortal realms. In terms of how they play, they are very different from the other Slaves to Darkness Spearhead. They have a very thematic and unique set of rules that reflect their in-game lore. However, it can be challenging to utilize effectively, especially for a new player. The battle trait, Oaths of Darkness, is a neat little ability, letting you gain advantage through using the Battle Tactics deck, but can be hard to use and can feel like a lot of work for very little reward. The Darkoath War Queen is surprisingly capable combat hero with crit mortals on her melee attacks and a 5+ ward save, but only a 5+ armor save. Her Oath of Supremacy ability to give +1 to hit rolls for attacks to friendly units works great on the Marauders and even Fell Riders before they charge into combat. The Rage of a Car Regiment ability is a must-take as your army suffers from having no rend on their base profiles. The Marauders explode on death on a 4+ when near the War Queen, and the Savages can punch above their weight with their crit mortal bladed attacks. The Fell Riders are a much needed fast unit that can do some damage in combat with their charge +1 damage weapon ability, but are lacking in defense, making them pretty fragile and they don't inflict mortal damages on the charge like other cavalry units. In the games with this Spearhead, you'll be trying to complete oaths to gain the command abilities for later rounds, whilst holding back your opponent's army with your weaker units. Even with the reinforcement keyword on some of your units, they ultimately struggle to bring the fight into the combat phase. They lack the damage output, movement abilities and defense to challenge a lot of the other Spearheads, which places them at C tier. As we move into the beginning of 2025, we got the Ironjawz Bigmob. This Spearhead contains a Mega Boss, 5 Brutes, 3 Brute Ragers and 10 Ard Boys. These mean and green boys in yellow armor have a points total of 670, a good amount of points worth of models for a Spearhead box. When it comes to value, you're looking at a discount of around 40% and a savings of £57.50, which is a crazy amount of savings. The Spearhead focuses on the Ironjawz side of the Orruk Warclans faction. These destructive balls of green muscle in pig iron reflect the brutal nature of Gork. The box provides a great selection of the core infantry units you would want to build out an Ironjawz army for bigger AoS, making it a great starting point alongside the Battle Force box if you can still get your hands on it in your local wargaming store. When it comes to gameplay and rules, the Mighty Destroyer's battle trait is a great movement ability for your otherwise not so fast 4-inch movement units. The Megaboss is a brutal warlord and one of the stronger generals in Spearhead with 8 health, 3+ save and 8 attacks. Not many stay standing after a round of combat. His Get Stuck In Lads ability really buffs up one of your units to get them all amped up for combat. The Natural Disaster Regiment ability is a fun but less reliable form of +1 attacks, while a proper Ruckus lets you move everyone with Mighty Destroyers once per battle. The Brutes are bullies on objectives, negating enemy models with a lower health characteristic than themselves the ability to contest the objective. And the Ragers hit as hard as the Mega Boss with the added benefit of having Strike First when charging, but lacks the 3+ save the rest of the army has. The R-Boys are a durable brick wall with anti-charge +1 rend and the Shield Bash ability. They really want someone to charge into them, making them the perfect screening unit. The army is surprisingly tactical, aiming to make favourable trades in combat and to catch enemy units off guard with Mighty Destroyers. With high damage potential, strong defense and out of sequence movement, the Ironjawz are able to take most Spearhead armies head on and give them a good crumping. So I'm going to put them up there at A tier, a solid box and a great Spearhead for beginners. Up next we have the Fusil-Platoon. This Spearhead contains an Alchemist Warforger, a Fusil Major on Warhulk, 10 Fusiliers and a unit of 11 Wildercorp Hunters. This fortified force of defenders have a total points cost of 460, which is ever so slightly more than its previous Cities of Sigmar Spearhead. When it comes to value, you're looking at a discount of around 34% and a savings of £44.50. This Spearhead focuses more on ranged combat than melee, with every unit but the Warforger having a ranged weapon. The Fortified Position battle trait gives your caster-like units an extra layer of defense if they do not move, but their lack of damage output in combat is their greatest weakness. The Alchemite Warforger Blazing Weapon spell helps give one of your units the extra punch they need in combat, perfect on a unit of Wildercorp Hunters as they have more attacks to trigger crit mortals. The Fusil Major is a towering hero that can do a lot of damage with its long range attacks and mace in combat. The Shield Bash enhancement can push back an enemy unit engaged in combat with it, giving him space to shoot in the next phase, while Point Blank Volley enhancement lets you do mortal damage in the enemy combat phase. The Fusiliers can do some decent damage in the shooting phase, and the Wildercorp Hunters can move in the deployment phase, acting as a screen to protect the rest of the army. The army may be able to shoot some units off the board given enough opportunities, but the Spearhead suffers from low damage output in combat and poor at taking objectives or scoring battle tactics with its limited movement. The Fusil-Platoon unfortunately struggles against pretty much all of the other Spearhead armies, so I'm going to be putting them at the bottom at D tier. As someone who collects and plays Cities of Sigmar for larger AoS, I am sad to see them at D tier. Switching over to Death, we have the Mortisan Elite. This Spearhead contains a Mortisan Ossiarch, 3 Immortus Guard, 3 Necropolis Stalkers and 2 Morcast Archai. The total points cost of this box comes to a staggering 700 points. You get a lot of bone for your buck as you are looking at a discount of around 33% and a savings of £51. An excellent pickup to go alongside the other Ossiarch Bonereapers Spearhead to start building an army of bone. Unlike the other Spearhead, this force focuses on the bigger elite infantry of the faction. The Relentless Discipline battle trait gives the army some really impactful advantages like extra movement, +1 to wound rolls and even 5+ ward save. The Mortisan Ossiarch is a vulnerable buff hero, giving out crit 2 hits to a friendly unit. When it comes to enhancements, there's not many that are very significant, with men constructs to heal D3 being the best option. The Immortus Guard are sturdy bodyguards that you want to stay close to the general to give it a 5+ ward, while the Necropolis Stalkers are more aggressive and combat orientated, looking to slice through enemy units with their Rend 2 Stalker Blades. Their Switch Aspects ability to subtract 1 from hit rolls for combat attacks that target them really helps with their average defensive stats, or they can switch over to Destroyer Aspect to have their damage ignore ward saves. The Morcast Archai are the real damage dealers that can fly over enemy units and strike with their Rend 2 damage 3 attacks. Their Heralds of Nagash ability increases the chance to get off a discipline roll when outside of 12 inches of your general, or even if the general has been slain. The army as a whole is very elite with very good defense and damage output. However, the army can be easily overwhelmed by larger forces and can find it difficult to control objectives with their lower model count and control value. Despite some of these flaws, I'm going to put them at A tier for now, with it possibly dropping down to B tier after a few more games against them. Jumping back over to order, we have the Sunblood Prowlers. This spearhead contains the Sunblood pack, 10 Saurus warriors, 10 Hunters of Huanshi, 3 Terror Wings and a spawn of Chotek. The total points cost of this box comes to 650, which is the same as the existing Seraphon spearhead. And for value, you're looking at a discount of around 33% and savings of £51. This is a pretty good box if you're looking to grab yourself a spawn of Chotek and Hunters Huanshi for your Seraphon army, but it's not as appealing as the existing Seraphon spearhead with the big Carnosaur in my opinion. Also, the Sunblood pack are a Legends War Scroll as well, so you can't use them in larger AoS. As for how they play, the Vengeance of Azir battle trait lets you deal immortal damage to enemy units at the end of the turn, which can really add up over the course of the battle. The Sunblood pack is a unique unit of 3 smaller heroes that attack with a strength of 2 regular heroes. The Savage Bellow ability buffs one of your units with crit 2 hits, and the Scaled Protector's passive lets them ignore the first damage point in each phase, which is a very interesting defensive ability to increase their durability. For enhancements, the Blessed by the Old Ones lets you bring back the general if it has been destroyed, and Savage Mauling goes hard against death armies or any unit with ward saves. When picking regiment abilities, Scaled Aegis can give a friendly Saurus unit a 6+ ward as long as you roll a 3+ on a d6, while Followers of Huanshi is not very effective, especially more so as the Hunters don't come into play until round 3. The big block of 10 Saurus warriors are a wall of teeth and scales. They bully smaller sized units in their weight class, and the Ordered Cohorts passive adds 1 to save rolls while they're contesting an objective you control. The Terror Wings provide helpful combat support by giving an enemy unit -1 to hit rolls, but they need to be in combat and roll a 4+ on a d6. With their fast movement and fragile bodies, they are best suited as sneaking around the battlefield, taking objectives, or possibly engaging the opponent's vulnerable hero. The Hunters of Huanshi and Spawn of Chotek don't come into play until battle round 3, which is a big downside to this spearhead. The Hunters will find it hard to deal damage with their 0-Ren Dart Pipes, which makes their Star Venom ability harder to trigger, while the Spawn of Chotek has surprisingly strong attacks in melee but unreliable flame acid attack. The army overall has a decent amount of damage output from the Saurus units and enough bodies to grind out the opponent. However, the spearhead feels like fighting with a hand behind your back, as one half of the army is basically non-existent until round 3. And when they do enter, they don't have as much of an impact as the other spearhead's army's late game units. I'm going to be placing them at the bottom of B tier. They are still able to keep up with other armies at this tier level, but will really struggle against those higher up on the scale. Switching from cold-blooded reptiles to hot-blooded ogres, we have the Scrapglutt of the Ogor Mawtribes. This spearhead contains a man-trapper with tokens, 8 Iron Guts, 12 Gnoblars and 1 Gnoblar Scrap Launcher, with a total points cost coming to around a rough 780 points and a discount between 25 to 30%. The savings on this box is a rough estimate, as the man trapper is from an older Underworld box with outdated pricing, coupling this with the 12 Gnoblars being half the number you would normally get if you were to buy the box, and the estimated saving comes to around £30. Just like with the Sunblood Prowlers, the Man Trapper is a Legends War Scroll, meaning you won't be able to use it in your games of match play, but he's a pretty good proxy as a Blood Pelt Hunter. The 12 Gnoblars are also not enough to make a full unit of 24, which is a really odd decision by Games Workshop. When it comes to rules, the Scrapglutt does not have a unique battle trait, and 6 of your Iron Guts are off doing what ogres do until battle round 3, which is a huge punch to the stomach. The Man Trapper is a decent hero with a 5+ save and a conditional 5+ ward as long as he has his tokens, and his no slacking ability increases the control score of a unit, which is useful on your Iron Guts or himself. The Scrap Launcher has a pretty wild and unpredictable shooting attack with crit auto wounds. It can do some damage or hardly any, but lack the Ren to punch through units with high armor saves. The Rain of Scrap ability to subtract 1 from hit rolls can really benefit your army, as you want to hold out for as long as you can until the other half gets involved. You don't want the scrap launcher to get into combat unless you decide to take Frenzied Artillery, which adds 3 to the Rhinox Sharp Horns attacks if it rolls a charge of 6+, which is a fun and legitimate way to utilize the War Machine. The Gnoblars are very fragile cannon fodder that can return D3 slain models at the end of every turn and have the reinforced keyword. If you choose It's a Hard Life Regiment ability, they become lunch for your general, giving him much needed survivability. The Iron Guts really carry the rest of the army with their massive Ren 2 damage 3 attacks in combat that pulverize anything it connects with, but have the curse of only hitting on falls. They are a bit of a glass cannon however, with only 4 health and a 5+ save, so you want them protected by the Gnoblars until you can get an opening to engage with them. The army as a whole has the tools and strength to hold out against the opponent until the 6 Iron Guts join in Battle Round 3. But how many you have left on the board before they arrive really depends on the strength of the opponent's army. The Iron Guts are susceptible to shooting attacks, losing them early can be disastrous. Your general can be pretty survivable given the right regiment ability and enhancements, but won't be able to deal the same amount of damage as the Iron Guts. Even with the glaring weaknesses of the Spearhead, I'm going to be placing them at B tier just because the Iron Guts carry the whole army. I got to say, this feels like a big downgrade from the previous Ogor Mawtribes box, which I am a big fan of. If the configuration of the box was slightly different, with less Gnoblars, and you get rid of the scrap launcher, and instead have some Man-Eaters or the Gorger Maw pack, I will be starting my Ogor Mawtribes army with these 2 Spearheads. But we're not here to create our perfect Spearhead box, that's for a later video. Diving underwater, we have the Akhelian Tide Guard. This Spearhead contains an Akhelian King, 3 Akhelian Morsar Guard, 3 Akhelian Ishleyan Guard, and 10 Namarti Reavers. With a total point cost of 650, going up to 720 if you build the Akhelian King into Volturnus High King of the Deep. When it comes to value, you're looking at a discount of 41%, saving you an amazing £60.50. This is one of the best discounts when it comes to Spearhead boxes and has some of the best models in the Idoneth faction. The Akhelian Guards have 2 different build options as well as the Akhelian King mentioned earlier, which makes this Spearhead an amazing double purchase to start your Idoneth Deepkin collection. As for how they play, the army's unique battle trait, Royal Imperative, effectively gives the whole army strike first or crit mortals on melee weapons for the entirety of the 3rd battle round. This is a very powerful ability that requires some setup to maximize the full effect, as you need to survive the first 2 rounds. The Akhelian King is a fierce cavalry hero with a mount that attacks with as much force as he can. The Raiders Resolve ability can give a friendly unit a much welcome +1 to save rolls until the start of your next turn, and he can deal mortal damages when charging on a roll of a 2+ on a D3. His selection of enhancements really levels him up, opening different strategies and playstyles. Dutiful Souls bring back slain models, but only once per battle, a 5+ ward and healing D3 at the end of every turn if the general is in combat adds more survivability to an already strong and defensive fighter. The Akhelian Morsar Guard are the more aggressive variant of the Akhelian Guard that have a once per battle mortal damage on the charge. They also have the charge +1 damage weapon ability, which makes them excellent shock cavalry. The Fang mounts aren't your regular horses, they hit on 4s with Ren 1 and damage D3, giving the unit even more damage output in combat. The Ishleyan Guard on the other hand are more tailored for prolonged rounds of combat, as they don't benefit from the charge +1 damage weapon ability. They have a once per battle Biovoltaic Barrier ability that can subtract 1 from attacks of a unit engaged in combat with it for the rest of the turn. And rounding off the army are 10 Namarti Reavers. These agile ranged support unit excels in hit and run tactics, where their natural run and retreat and still shoot passive. Picking the Shield of Ulchis Regiment ability means they don't suffer the mortal damages when they retreat from combat, which is a massive bonus to an already powerful movement ability. The Namarti have a lot of versatility because of the movement, letting them grab objectives or acting as a screen to block off enemy charges. The army is very tactical and requires precise movement and engagement to get that all-important Battle Round 3 strike first to be effective. The army has the speed, strength and movement abilities to outmaneuver and crush their opponents. However, with limited defensive abilities and recursion, the army suffers significantly with each model lost. That said, I'm going to be placing the Akhelian Tide Guard firmly at A tier. It is a fantastic spearhead and a great start for a new Idoneth player. If you want to see my full breakdown and review of the spearhead, there is a link to the video in the description below. Next up we have Khorne's best dogs, the Fangs of the Blood God. This spearhead contains the legendary Hound of Vengeance Kharadron, 10 Flesh Hounds and a unit of 8 Claws of Kharadron. With a total points cost of 410, which is on the lower end of total points for a spearhead box. For value, you're looking at a discount of 36% and a savings of £49.50. This spearhead is very different from the previous Khorne box as it focuses on a small yet unique and iconic aspect of the faction. Flesh Hounds have been synonymous with Blades of Khorne from the very beginning, with their striking bestial and reptilian features. The Claws of Kharadron are also a very popular unit, originally released for Warhammer Warcry. I just love their design. It blends the wild fury of Khorne cultists with direct Flesh Hounds imitations through their armor and weaponry. This box may not be the more classic Blood Warriors and Blood Reavers, but it does have some gorgeous looking models that are also great supporting units in the larger game of AoS. Kharadron and Flesh Hounds are shaping out to be an auto-include in many Blades of Khorne army lists, so if you're planning on going on a Blood Pilgrim, you don't want to miss out on the Fangs of the Blood God. For how they play, the unique battle trait, Blood Drench, lets you at the end of any turn give one of your units crit mortals for the rest of the game, as long as they killed an enemy model with a fight ability this turn. This is a fantastic combat buff for a spearhead army that has a lot of attacks but little to no rend to deal enough damage. The other half of the battle trait, the Quarry, lets you pick an enemy hero to be marked as the Quarry, making it a target for Kharadron's ability. To personalize your playstyle, the Scent of Blood Regiment ability lets your units gain +1 to hit rolls in combat against enemy units that have been damaged this phase, while Savagery upon Savagery is a once per battle ability that gives one of your units extra attacks if they are in combat with a unit that has a higher attacks characteristic than them. This is slightly difficult to pull off as your units already have a high attacks characteristic to begin with, but great when going into a big hero or a big monster that has a naturally high attacks characteristic. Kharadron himself can move d6 every hero phase, but he has to move closer to the Quarry if there is one on the battlefield. This is one of the strongest movement abilities in all of Spearhead I've seen so far, as it lets Kharadron move in and around of combat or even disengage to move in the movement phase. The selection of enhancements are very viable, with Evasive Hunter giving him protection against shooting, Killing Pounce for maximum charge distance, Sustained Gore for healing against a grindy army, and Furious Bites for when you really need to kill a tough hero. While Kharadron is the alpha dog, the Flesh Hounds are also ferocious with 4 attacks each and can add 1 to charge rolls, allowing them to get into combat easier after moving or returning to the battlefield from the reinforcement ability. The Claws of Kharadron have a slightly better 5+ save than the Flesh Hounds but lack a 6+ ward. They are just as savage in combat with their 3 attacks each and crit 2 hits on a 5+ using the Pack Hunter's ability. The army may look weak and fragile on paper with low saves and no rend attacks, but are surprisingly fast and strong at punishing armies with weak armor saves. All the units bar Kharadron have the reinforcement ability, giving the army enough sustain to keep fighting for all 4 rounds. The biggest star of the show is Kharadron, of course, a scary hero hunter that will murder just about any standard infantry hero. Against many of the other spearheads, the Fangs of the Blood God have enough teeth and claws to hunt down their prey, but they will struggle to chew through the tougher armies at the top of the food chain. So I'm going to be placing them at the top of B tier. I really want to put them in A tier, but we'll have to see if I want to bump them up after a few games with and against them. And for the last spearhead, but certainly not least, we have the Grundstok Trailblazers. This spearhead contains an Endrin Master with dirigible suit, 3 Endrin Riggers, 5 Grundstok Thunderers and a Grundstok Gun Hauler. An elite force of Dwarden technology and firepower that has a total points cost of 540 points. For value, you're looking at a discount of around 33% and a savings of £44, which is a great deal for these profit-orientated skyfaring dwarves. The box is a bit of a downgrade from the previous box that had a frigate instead of a gun hauler, but at least we still have one of the faction's more iconic sky vessels included. If you're planning on collecting the Kharadron Overlords, this is a great deal for the models you get. getting this and the previous Spearhead box is a fantastic start on your Skyfaring adventure. When it comes to rules, the unique battle trait Gunhauler Escort subtracts 1 from hit rolls to attacks against your infantry units that are wholly within 6 inches of your Gunhauler. A very nice defensive ability that significantly reduces the damage going into your high armor save units. You can play more defensive with the Propeller Downdraft Regiment ability to subtract 1 from charge rolls for enemy units while they're within 9 inches of your Gunhauler, while Rapid Relocation lets you teleport one of your units with Fly outside of 6 inches from enemy units, great at saving your general or your Gunhauler stuck in combat, which you'll find yourself in more often than not on the smaller Spearhead board. The Engine Master is a pretty strong hero that zips around the battlefield with his 12-inch movement. He is also very survivable with 8 health on a 3+ save, and he can dish out significant damage with Rend 2 melee attacks and enough guns to kill a small hero. He can also heal a unit with the Fly keyword in your hero phase, letting you keep the Gunhauler's health topped up or even himself as he too can fly. The Engine Riggers are a fast utility unit that doesn't really do enough damage with shooting or combat, but act more as a distraction or screen to protect your bigger guns. They have the Cloud Weaving Skyfarer's ability to move in the enemy's movement phase, which is a very strong ability, but you need to roll a 3+ to get it off. The Thunderers are a sturdy block of dwarves with an array of big guns that will be doing a good deal of damage at range. Just keep them safe and screened off because they are terrible in combat. And the Gunhauler is a flying tank with 10 health on a massive 2+ save. Its Sky Ordnance gun can punch through enemy units, and the Overwatch ability deals mortal damage to a unit that charges the Gunhauler. It's a nice little deterrent if you roll a 2+ on a D3, but they lack any way to disengage from combat without suffering mortal damages to themselves or able to shoot after retreating. The Thunderers and the Gunhauler want to stay as far away from enemy units as possible. As a big fan of the Kharadron Overlords, I am a bit disappointed with how the Spearhead rules have been put together. Many of their abilities require a critical 2+ roll on a D3, and the abilities that don't require dice rolls don't do enough or have much of an advantage. The Gunhauler's save going from a 3+ to a 2+ is a nice benefit, and the rest of the army having a durable 3+ save is pretty good too. However, the army really suffers when engaged in melee combat. You might be able to shoot some of your opponent's army off the battlefield in the first couple of turns, but you will find it hard to take objectives off the opponent unless you engage them in combat. Overall, I have to put the Grundstok Gunhaulers at C tier. They are better than the Fusil-Platoon that suffer from the same issues, but the speed of the units at least pull them out of D tier. And there we go, those are all the new Spearhead boxes that have been released for 4th edition Age of Sigmar so far. It's clear that while some boxes offer incredible value and a strong Spearhead force, others are a bit more niche and are best left for larger AoS. Ultimately, Spearhead has been massively successful from the beginning, and I am so happy that many new and current players are able to continue to enjoy this game mode with new maps, updated rules and more Spearhead armies. Whether you're a new player looking for your first army or a veteran seeking a fresh challenge, these Spearhead boxes are an excellent way to dive into the exciting game of Age of Sigmar. Let us know in the comments below which box you think is the best and what you're most excited to paint and play. Don't forget to like, subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss the next video. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!